Welcome to the Ovary Jones Show. I'm your host, Melanie Holscher, survivor and author of Becoming Ovary Jones. And I am so excited to welcome Devaney Rae today. She has an incredible story, and I know you guys are just going to get so much out of it. So without any further ado, welcome Devaney Rae.
Thank you, Melanie. Thank you for inviting me. It's a joy, really, to be here with you.
Absolutely. Devaney, you have an incredible story, and I'm just wondering, what was your life like before you got that diagnosis?
Well, I like to say my life was that of just a regular girl living professional life, a balance between career and personal, and all that goes into that word personal life. Wasn't anything that was known on the big stage. It was basically Gulf Coast living, which is where I was born and reared. At the time of diagnosis, I was in the healthcare industry providing direct patient care daily and then doing healthcare administration of a large clinic based and then some hospital based work as well from time to time. I'm involved in church commitments and serving and then family, no children at that time. And so I still have not had biological children, but I have several heart children that I like to say. And so then I was 38 years old whenever I received those life changing words of ovarian cancer, stage 3C, which is, I understood then from learning, terminal at diagnosis, which is shocking. I didn't know there was such a thing as a cancer diagnosis and then a cancer diagnosis that's terminal at diagnosis. So lots of learning there. But we traveled quite a bit. And so it was just I wouldn't say running end to end 7 days a week, 24/7, but definitely a full life for sure.
Yeah, so you had a big, full, busy life. Sounds like you had a thriving career.
Yeah,
And, cancer is so rude. It doesn't
it
make an
is.
appointment, it doesn't, ask. It is just that uninvited guest that
Yeah.
crashes the party and then
Amen.
it just doesn't want to leave. And we have to do all kinds of things to
Yeah.
try and evict this very invasive cancer. So tell
Yeah.
me about that diagnosis. What were you thinking? What were you feeling? How did you take all of that in?
Yeah. The one word is complete numbing shock, truly. On the outside looking in, vibrant, healthy, physical workouts several times a week, in shape, fit, all those good words. And so, I'd had the symptoms of mine specifically was ovarian cancer. And so it's called the silent killer because it just mimics symptoms of what a woman would feel monthly, except on steroids, maybe. But when my life was so full, I kind of ignored the ramping up of those symptoms. So looking back, it probably was a year of symptoms before the diagnosis, but then it was just the stabbing pain, the pain that would stop me in my tracks that kind of sent me to my GYN, which was in Houston, Texas, very close to where I lived in Louisiana. And it was the 20-pound tumor, like literally. And we understand that those are soft tissue, so they can squish and move around. But I definitely felt the bloating at the 20-pound level. But I think that the shock that day, my first shock was seeing it on her face. I could see it when she was doing the pelvic ultrasound. And then immediately she said, just meet me in my office and we'll talk. And I knew. I didn't know what, but I knew. And so I think that's when the big monster, the big dragon kind of got on my shoulder of this is not good. This is going to change my world today. It's going to be different. And so, of course, she told me that I needed to see a gynecological oncologist. That was the first statement out of her mouth. And I just said, the problem solver that I am, right? I don't want to see that kind of doctor. You need to decide on a different kind. And so then she told me. And in that moment, it was like the world stopped spinning and I was up over the world in space somewhere. It was just so surreal. And I'm just a really down to earth girl. So that was very, very different. Fast forwarding, everything moved really quick. And so I ended up in surgery probably about 3 weeks later, the big debulking, I call it just kind of gutting a woman out because that's what it was. And so, I think the coping in those 3 weeks, I probably just kicked in with positive lifestyle and hope and faith, and just the things. I had an amazing circle of supporters that helped me not just lay on the floor in a big crumble and not be able to plan or get ready and all of the pieces that needed to happen. Um, I would say the number one thing was support of family and friends, and just that strong anchor of faith. And then waking up from the surgery, that was the beginning of a whole new life. I realized what I was facing. And at that point, post surgical first surgery, the prognosis was 6 months to live. Wow. So it was pretty daunting. I was 38 and had not had my first child yet. So I was so hopeful that maybe one ovary could be saved, but it was everywhere in the abdominal cavity. It was in the lymph nodes of my legs. It was a mess. It was a hot mess. And so I think that I like to say that my second life really did begin then, and that was February of 2002.
Yeah, wow. That is an incredible diagnosis and
Yeah.
a lot to take in. I always say we have amazing doctors working on our bodies,
Yeah.
but cancer hijacks our mind, and the war really is fought in our mind. So,
Yeah.
how in the world were you able to take all of that in and have that mindset that, you know what, the prognosis isn't that great, but I am going to assume the victory. I'm going to keep moving forward. I understand that you didn't go through some of the more common treatments. You didn't go through chemotherapy. How did you work with your doctors, and how in the world did you manage all of the emotions that happen with
Yeah.
a diagnosis like that?
Yeah, those are all like amazing questions, and they're so real life for not just women with reproductive cancers, but I really say for any human with a cancer diagnosis. There's so much information coming at us, but then if we lose our mental stability, it's almost impossible to navigate it. And so, I will raise my right hand and say that I lost my mental stability for the first week or so, and thankfully I was in the hospital recovering. It was just massive invasive surgery. So I was in the hospital for over a week. And so that was a help, because another thing I always say is I had legalized drugs on board, and it really helped to so I could calm the the panic, and begin to think like myself again. And when I say that, I'm practical problem solver. Anything outside those realms, I need to consciously work on everything, right? And so, again, family, friends. Once I was released from the hospital, then of course I had that 6 weeks of recovery. And that's when I kicked in on the problem solver that I am. So I spent probably 10 hours a day researching. This was the catalyst. I always kind of move and ebb and flow by a catalyst. Something that motivates me is that my doctor told me that chemotherapy and radiation would not save my life, but that I needed to start it in 6 weeks. And I remember looking at him like he was a green monster with his head laying on the side of the table and saying, now, why would I do that? You just said it's not going to save my life. That's not the quality of life that I want. And he said, but you have to. And I said, in Devaney's world, you don't have to do anything. So that he got a little bit of that spunk coming back at him. But I did spend that 6 weeks digging in deeply and researching. While I have a medical background, I'm certainly not an oncologist. I'm not a physician. And so I just had to dig deep to understand. And basically, a lot of my hope outside of the strong anchor of faith was found in finding information and putting together a protocol. That's what I call it, because it's not called treatment if it's not mainstream medicine's standard of care treatment, which I have lots of respect for. Nothing against that. Just knowing that it wasn't going to save my life, that's not the suffering I wanted to go through. Right. And so put together a protocol and found some alternative practitioners to work with me. That helped my mental. So whatever that would equal for other people is what I generally say. Try to find that thing, that activity, that effort, something you can dig into that feeds your soul, just the innermost part of you that brings some calm and some satisfaction. Okay, I can do this. And then I think, secondly, really cultivating that support group around myself. I didn't want to be a burden to my family. And so I spent that 6 weeks also connecting with some girlfriends, some alternative practitioners, some faith-based people I respected. And I just really said, hey, will you walk with me through this journey? And even right now, I feel the power of that memory in a positive way. It's overwhelming emotionally that we must believe good people want to help people. We just have to ask and we have to be specific. And so that would be what I would say those first 6 to 8 weeks entailed,
Mm-hmm.
and how I really kept my mind together, but also got focused on something I could kind of dig into.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I love about that is you considered yourself part of the team. And sometimes I
Yes,
think we have, we have amazing physicians. I have a great team of doctors, but we have to be part of those decisions. And we
yes,
have to subscribe and believe in whatever our treatment is. I went the
yes,
chemo route, you went a different
yes,
direction, but we both went the route that was right for us because that's
yes,
the route that we chose. And I think so often
yes,
we have so much guilt as cancer patients. It's like, oh, it's somehow our fault. How did you deal
right.
with that? Did you have that?
Yes, the guilt was over the top tremendous. And I think this is just my unprofessional, unscientific thought about it. A lot of years to think about why would I feel guilt and shame? And then I talked to many other cancer thrivers and found out that they felt similar. I thought, once I dug to the root, that it my body failed me. I kept on thinking that my body failed me, my vessel failed me. And that's not the truth. That is not facts and reality. And so in my world, I say facts plus reality equals truth, right? That's not facts and reality. Here are the pieces and parts of what contributed, what we know. And many of those contributors to cancer are outside of us. Just the modern world we live in. Some of it's genetic, some of it's nutrition, some of it is all the things of our lifestyle. Much of it is, though, out of our control. So then I just went back to that practical Devaney space and just said, okay, what are the facts and reality? And I just kicked that shame and guilt to the curb of my life. And the way I do that is mentally first. I literally envision I'm kicking that out and it's going to the curb, outside of me, away from me. And then I fill up my soul, so my heart part, the thinker, feeler, chooser, self will, with goodness, good thoughts, facts, and reality. And so I think that's how I pushed away the initial guilt and shame, but then I had to keep pushing it away in other ways.
Isn't that the truth? Sometimes
Yeah,
you have to make a
yeah,
decision once and you think, oh, you're done with it. No, every
no,
day, every day.
yes,
I had
yeah,
to actually
and
adopt that mindset. Like, if one survived, so could I. If none survived, I'll be the first. And I
ah,
had to like keep reinforcing that every day. And quite
yeah,
honestly, I came across you somewhere mid my treatment, and
I think so.
it was so wonderful because you shared your story, and I was like, aha, see, I'm not the first. So you actually had a
But
wonderful impact on my journey.
thank you. I'm so grateful.
Absolutely. So how long were you fighting? Tell me about that.
Yes. So my battle was a solid 7 years.
Wow.
Um, some of it was active cancer years that I was actually advocating for my therapy, my protocol, what I was doing. I had an amazing GYN oncologist who agreed. They disagreed with what I was doing, but there was so much respect because I could explain to them my why, and then I could show them the protocol that they couldn't deny, even though it wasn't the standard of medical care. They could see the science. And so they worked with me to do the surgical parts over and over to remove recurring tumors, to get the masses out, and to support me with all of the complications of that kind of cancer. And every kind of cancer has their own known complications.
Right.
With ovarian, the chronic bowel obstructions from the damage to the colon from the cancer is the torturous demon that is almost as difficult as battling the cancer itself. So, of course, in that 7 years, I had both battles going on. And so I was doing my IV infusions daily for 6 hours a day, 6 days a week for 3 years.
Wow.
So that was the cornerstone. And then the other things were added in. So it was a full-time job.
Mm-hmm.
And I embraced it because I was on a mission now to win the war. I knew I would lose some battles along the way, but I wanted to win this war. And then along the way, I discovered the truth. I think it's a principle truth. We win either way.
Mm.
We really do win. No one loses to the cancer battle when they are all in with the fight, right?
Yeah,
And so
so tell
that
us more
kind of,
about that. I'm really intrigued by that. I think that's an amazing because
yeah,
I believe every morning that I wake up, I'm a survivor today, right? And it's
yeah,
like it's
yeah,
exciting. I've been granted and given, and like I feel like I'm on
yeah,
extended play here, and I'm going to make the
yeah.
most out of every single day. But tell us a little bit more about We Win Either Way, because I think that is so important. I agree.
Yeah. When I was in the third year, I had recurred, which with my type of cancer, that's almost for sure a death sentence if it's before 5 years from the science and the stats. If it's before 5 years from your diagnosis, it's pretty, I called it, I'm a dead duck walking, is kind of I kept some humor in there. But I'd gone to Seattle because there's not a specialty for ovarian cancer, but they have a big, representation of GYN oncologists and a lot of research there. So they had given me 1 month prognosis after that surgery of the recurrence, and they're the best among the best of the best. So I was very despairing, and the fear it was choking me. It was like around my neck,
Mm.
and I knew that if I didn't deal with the fear, that I probably wouldn't make it. It would take my life just psychologically, and then I would give up, right?
Right.
And so, from a faith-based space, there was just an evening, and it was very dark and in my soul. And I was on a lot of pain medication, and I was within that 1 month of not making it. And I just really felt the presence of the Lord, and I heard his voice within me. It was not here, it was within me. And he said to me in my spirit, "You win either way. Stop fearing." And it was like something just rose up in me. And we know scripturally it's just based on fear not, I am with you. And so it was really that simple. If he's with me and I'm promised eternity, this is just a vessel that has a piece of eternity in it named Devaney, then what is there to fear? And it gave me a renewed fight. And
Mm.
so I just worked on that message of truth. I call it a principle of life now. And I really journaled and I spoke it in positive affirmations. I studied about it. And those things kind of brought that second wind back in me.
Oh, that's
And so
wonderful.
that was the beginning of the ending of cancer threatening my life when I was in Seattle. About 2.5 weeks after the surgery, I was still in the hospital from complications. And this amazing GYN who knows ovarian cancer and saw all that he saw that caused him to give 1 month prognosis walked into the room with the lab reports that he said he had run many times because he couldn't believe it. And he said, "I don't know what it is that you're doing, but what I saw in there is terminal cancer. And all of these biopsy reports are saying it is not malignant, but at this point, we don't even know what kind of tissue it is."
Wow.
And so that was like a turning point for me. I was just in tears. You would have thought I'd been laughing and all that. The response was so different. It was just like overwhelmed because now I need to start over in another way. What am I going to do now? Right.
Right.
So it's really, cancer is a journey that surprises us with the way we respond to things. It almost isn't quote unquote normal, but that's where it really comes in, where I say cancer didn't change who I am. Cancer changed how I am. It's how I embrace what gets thrown at me and not expecting myself to react or the way that I think is expected. Sometimes it's totally different. So, and a
Absolutely.
lot more on that, but we all need permission to just let ourselves feel what we feel and then decide what we're going to do about it.
Absolutely. I'm so glad that you said that because I always try to encourage everybody to feel all the feels
Yeah.
And then it doesn't mean we have to hold on to them. We can let some go.
Yeah.
But it's up to us to try them out, feel the feels, go through this whole emotional journey,
Yeah.
and then figure out how to put it all back together again. So, rolling the clock forward a little bit, um, tell me a little bit about your life now. I love your book, by the way. This
Thank
is
you.
Countless Joys, The Place Beyond Tears by Devaney Rae. And it is absolutely beautiful. But you have some incredible principles and tools in there. So tell us a little bit about where you are now, what you're doing now. Tell us a little bit about your book.
Yeah, well, thank you. So I took that moment in Seattle, and there was still about a year that it took me to come back to life. I was like a right 89 pounds at that point, just a sliver, right? And having a lot of complications still that could take my life, not the cancer, but complications. And so I took those feelings and I just shifted. I shifted the depression of I'm more ready to go than I am to stay. I don't have any goals in this life. What am I going to do? And I just spent time in self development, but also healing. I gave myself lots of grace and mercy to come back to life. But that's where I really discovered what I now call life principles of truth. And it's nothing new under the sun. It's just taking the known biblical principles of the Word of God, things that are like gravity. As a principle, it's undefeated, right? If we respect and honor it, we can make plans and solve problems around that principle. If we try to defy it, it might not go so well, right? And so I took that cornerstone and I really started digging out core life principles and applying them to my life. And then, of course, all the pieces and parts about setting outcomes that I want to reach and having things I'm looking forward to and those sorts of things. And through that process, I realized that my life and healthcare career was really, it shifted, it changed. Something I loved, I had no more desire to go back into. So
Wow.
I re educated. That's where I took the turn and re educated in a whole different skill set and arena. And that was where it all came together. It was basically instructional design technology, but it's all about adult learning theory, how we take information in, process it, make decisions. And that was the runway for the book and for what I get to do now, which is really helping people to take problem, apply principles, and get a solution within a plan. And let's go forward and find out where we want to be. So, getting me from where I am now to where I want to be. And it's not a once and done. We use this kind of framework. And so, life just opened up anew and fresh for me in all the ways the Lord knew that I would need it to, right? And so I went into some new industries for work, once I was well and thriving. And then about 6 years ago, maybe seven, I just said, enough. I don't want to do corporate anymore. I want to be free. I want to see what the world holds. And so I went to Hawaii for 2 weeks, and that's when the book was planted and the dream of it. So I came home from Hawaii and wrote the book. And then I started accepting clients on my own and really helping them in the ways that kind of I just described the framework. That's how it started. And then it's morphed in now to my whole career, all the things I learned and got to do, business development, all that. But it still always comes down to life principles of truth with every single client. It's profound.
Absolutely. So I love that you say that. And I want to actually talk about one of the tools that you wrote about.
Mhm.
So, no matter where you are in your cancer journey, listen to this tool that Devaney has because I think it's absolutely incredible. Maybe it's, you're freshly diagnosed, maybe a little bit further along, but she talks about releasing the raging ship. So, Devaney, I
Yes.
would love for you to help us figure out how to release the raging ship. Can you talk about that?
Yes, so that is my beautiful friend and counselor that during the time of the healing, so many relationships were impacted by the impacts of cancer, but especially my most loved intimate relationship. And so that was like a raging ship that was a big ship, a cargo ship on the ocean that was just going crazy and making my life so unsettled emotionally, mentally, spiritually. And so she was amazing, still is, at giving tools. And so she said, I'm going to teach you this tool of how to calm the raging ship. And you can use this anywhere in your life. So the scenario is to paint the scenario of your life. So your raging ship, the cargo ship in the ocean, put all of the things on the ship: mental, emotional, spiritual, physical, put everything that is ailing you, relationships, all the pain, sorrow, all the negatives. Put it on the ship. What's making your life go crazy? Put it on the ship. Write it out. Put it on the ship. And then she said, you basically have this giant rope. It's a navigation type of rope for a cargo ship. And even though that ship, you can barely see it way out there in the depths of the ocean from standing on the sand, it's a speck, it's a ship. And you've got this rope. You're over here on the sand and you're trying to hold on to this raging vessel with this rope. And so you're bouncing all over the seashore on the sand. You're bouncing everywhere. And she said, what I want you to do is I want you to walk backwards away from the water in the sand. Just slowly walk backwards, because I know you can't just let go of this rope. You just can't let go. No matter how many times I tell you to let go, you can't let go. And so I would do that exercise for weeks, just walking backwards. And then she said, and then when you say that you don't need to walk backwards anymore, the effect of it has calmed some because it can't bounce you around as much the further away, even though you're holding onto the rope. You tell me, and then I'm going to plant this huge anchor, so many feet in the sand. And I want you to stop, and I want you to wrap one circle of that rope around that anchor, just one. And then you stay there. You still got your hands on the rope, but you've got one circle around. When you feel like you can wrap another circle, you want it to calm down even a little bit more, wrap another one. So each circle you wrap around the anchor will calm the raging a little bit more. So the calm that you got getting further away from the water, and now the calm of each circle. And you keep making a wrap of the circle as often as you can and feel the effects of the calm until you're not being bounced around anymore. So that was several weeks of that. And then she said, I want you to let go of the rope, just one hand. And then she did the other hand. And this was all just amazing, amazing. And she said, now just stand there. Just stand there and feel the calm for however long you need. And sometimes there was a week or two in between these steps. And then she said, I want you to turn around and face away from the ship. Just face away and tell me what you see. And of course, in my mind's eye, the whole beach scene, a beach town, it was just a beautiful Mayberry look of all the homes and the people, right? And she helped me understand there's more to life than holding on to a rope that's attached to a raging ocean vessel that's wrecking your life, and you can't control any of that. It's controlling you.
Right.
And so then she walked me through the next steps, which brought my healing from, in my case, relationship, trauma, and just heartbreak. And of course, the impacts of cancer were all wrapped in. And she helped me to take one step at a time toward the city, right? Which represents the rest of our life, right? Our future. And then she got me to to solid ground, not sandy ground. And of course, then she helped me understand how to rebuild my life on solid ground, the pieces and parts and the cornerstones. And then if I ever turned around and ran back to the rope, no judgment, not perfection, progress, just go through the steps of calming the raging ship again. It won't take as long because you know how to do it now. And so I had to do that a few times because I did run back, the emotional attachment, all the things, right? The pain. And so eventually I was able to walk away from the seashore altogether and rebuild my life. But it was that tool that I kept on adding pieces and parts to. And I use that now with my clients. I use it in my life. If something gets turned upside down, by other people and situations, I use the calming the raging ship again.
Yeah, that is beautiful because cancer really does hijack our
Yeah,
minds, and
everything.
we just can't, seem to let that go and walk toward to the town. So
Yeah,
you kind of brought up a little interesting thing. A lot of times, cancer shatters our life, and then when we go to put the pieces back together,
yeah.
interestingly enough, they don't really go back together the same
No,
way.
they
And
don't.
so, how do you help people put their lives back together? And how does family play into this? Because the family dynamics can be really daunting.
Yeah, they really can be. And most families that I'm familiar with through the battle that had contacted me or that I've shared, we're not weird. It happens in most situations because it's a battle. It's a war going on with multiple battles, right? And so for me, and I translate that to helping other people, it's sort of like a formula, but with all putty edges, so it can be shaped differently for different people, is identify the four cornerstones of your life, the things that are most important to you: family, um, helping others, whatever yours, each person's is. And let's start painting a new canvas. Let's get a blank canvas and start painting a new canvas of what those four cornerstone pieces would look like in action. And let's add some more paint as you take some steps in the action pieces to make the four cornerstones come back to life in a new way, in the way that your wisdom and life experience has now shaped you. Because it doesn't change who we are, it really does change how we are, how we do life, what we want, what's important to us. And then for so many people, the side effects of treatment sometimes create some mental, emotional, physical barriers that we still need to get over. So we factor that in. And it's okay if it takes a year just to do paint the first layer of the canvas. There's no rush. It's just that we're moving forward to start anew. I wouldn't say start over, it's a new. And so, not everyone that started the cancer battle with me in my life were a part of my life at the ending of the cancer battle. It's a bittersweet dynamic that happens. But if we can embrace that, I really use calm the raging ship, some pieces and parts of that to embrace and just say, it's okay. It's okay. That doesn't mean they're bad and I'm good. It doesn't mean that they're wrong and I'm right. It's an is. It just is what it is. And what can I do to put different paint on my canvas today? Because I can't make someone do something they don't want to do, and I can't fix some things. And it's okay. It's okay to say I can't. Sometimes we just don't want to make that an excuse, have it right.
Right.
And so that's how I continue to do it today. I haven't arrived. I'm still painting my canvas. But it didn't get to from 2009 to today in 2021, and what we see of Devaney Rae today. It was paint on the canvas steadily. And, if I needed to cry, I've cried. If I needed to lay down and nest a little bit to let my body come back together and be calm, I lay down and nest. I give myself permission to do the healthy work that I need to do even today, because sometimes I'll still get survivor guilt, and it's real. It's a real thing. And so I don't camp out there, but I stop and address it. I respect it and I work through it. And I think that's the piece and part. If we could learn that life skill of painting that canvas and embracing and respecting what our soul is telling us it needs, instead of just running through life like we maybe used to do before cancer, there's healing and wholeness there. There's thriving. And so I like to say, I'm not just surviving, I'm thriving, but I'm working to thrive. If I don't, then I get to just survive.
Absolutely. And I love that concept of we're always becoming.
Yeah,
And while my life certainly isn't what it used to be like before cancer, in many
right.
ways it's so much better, it's so much
Yeah,
fuller.
it
And
is.
so, speaking of what life is like after cancer, when you put all the pieces back together, so what are some of the unexpected lessons that you learn or joys that you were
Yeah.
able to find in darkness?
Yeah, that's such a great question, and it's so different for each person.
It
So
is.
so different. It's based on those kind of cornerstones that we rebuild again. But I think for me, I always before cancer was a happy-go-lucky person in general. Situations would affect me or bring me down, but that's not where I stayed. It was happy-go-lucky, try things, adventure, all of that. So I tried to take the best of that and bring it forward into rebuilding my life. And so joy was the cornerstone. And I really learned anew that if I can keep my joy on, just keep my joy on every day by being grateful, having gratitude in the smallest of pieces and parts, that I could really move forward and create happy spaces. And so I do the happy spaces, like the things I love the most, like coffee and outdoors and talking with friends and driving really fast in my car on a country road. And I like horseback riding. I love tennis. So all the things that I love gardening and flowers and cute shoes and hats. I just kind of built a happy place in my heart. And that's where all my happy things are. And I remind myself that I can go to the happy space and find joy every day. And I can actually go do some of the things that are in my happy space. So they remind me to go do some things, get out every day, meet new people, say hello, just enjoy the things that a 3-year-old would enjoy. If they could just take off out the front door, what would a 3-year old do? They would go explore the world and wonder about everything. So that was mine. That still is mine, my kind of centerpiece. And so I try to help other people. What is yours? What is your thing that we can build all the life experiences and fun back around for you in a new way? Because someone else is really might be studying something. They may be a data person, information, personality type. Let's build some things that you really love around what you love in the core. So joy has been mine, and that mental picture that I've painted of my happy place. And I keep adding things in there into that space. The core space for me is an outdoor garden setting. And I just keep putting all my things in there. And it reminds me to go do those things in life, go experience it. But that's kind of the template for it. It's pretty neat.
Absolutely. Yes.
It's a little bit Devaney crazy, but it works.
Well, I love Devaney Crazy, and there's a line in your book that just really resonated with me. You said, I am more alive in my second life than I
Yeah,
ever was in my first.
yeah,
I love that because
yeah,
sometimes, cancer, especially initially, can be so depressing and heavy and
yeah,
gloomy,
yeah,
but there really is an incredible life after and when we put all the pieces back together again. So,
yeah.
what is one piece of advice, and we're going to wrap up here really quickly, but what is
Okay.
one short piece of advice that you would have that you wish you knew when you were going through the battle that you can impart to
Yeah.
us?
For me, it's don't curse the day that I'm living in today and be so hard on myself or be so down about what the reality of it is. Stay true to who you are, whatever that is. If it's joy, if it's happy go lucky, if it's data, if it's humor, whatever, and do something of that every day, no matter how bad you feel physically.
Mhm.
I I try not to have regrets, but I do wish that I would have remembered and consciously practiced that. I think that the first couple of years would have been a little bit easier and more lighthearted instead of being so intense and focused on am I going to live? And if I could get my mind onto we win either way from the beginning so that I could let some joy come out every day. I got better at it over time, and we all do as cancer patients and thrivers. But I think that would be the one thing I would tell my younger cancer self is practice your joy, keep it on every day, just one something.
Absolutely. I love that. And today, you truly are the hostess of your own
Oh,
happy party.
thank
And
you.
so, when people want more Devaney Rae, where can we find you?
Oh, that's so sweet. I finally, a few years ago, stepped out in that confidence and developed my own website. So it's devaneyrae.com, and it's spelled RAE. And so a lot of what we talked about today is on the website. Also, people can connect with me. There's ways to contact me, like literally, and I will answer. I totally will answer emails. My phone number's not out there, but when someone contacts me, I give it to them and we talk. Now, of course, I'm only one person, but I love that I can do that. I'm getting ready, hopefully, in 2022 to start some more group work where I can hop on Zoom with people that get in a group and we can talk about pieces and parts of all this. So for sure that. And then I get to live in Franklin, Tennessee. So if you come through these mountain ways, then just connect with me and we can have coffee because that's my favorite thing.
Well, I absolutely would love whenever I get down to Tennessee because, as you know, I get down there quite often. So we will
Yeah.
definitely connect, but hopefully others can as well. And
Yeah.
certainly pick up Countless Joys by Devaney Rae. It is on Amazon. Where
It's
else?
on Amazon. It was in Barnes and Noble's bookstores, but I think it's order now. It's been out for about 5 or 6 years. So I don't know that it's stocked that much, but yes, they still print.
Absolutely. So that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your
Thank
time
you,
with us
Melanie.
today. And please get this to any cancer fighter that you know. Subscribe, hit the like button, comment below what piece of information or advice did Devaney share that you are absolutely going to tap into and apply in your cancer battle. And we look forward to seeing you next time on the Ovary Jones Show.